There is an institution that has operated continuously for 2,000 years. It has schools, hospitals, and charitable organizations on every continent. It has the moral authority of centuries. And it has, for decades, operated a system specifically designed to protect men who sexually abuse children from facing any legal consequences. And what you probably don't know is that the documents proving this existed inside the institution for decades before anyone outside ever saw them. Bishops knew, cardinals knew, the Vatican knew. And the children kept being abused. To understand the scale of what we're talking about, you need to start with a single city. In 2002, the Boston Globe published an investigation into sexual abuse within the Archdiocese of Boston. What they found wasn't one priest acting alone. It was a system. A priest named John Geoghegan had abused an estimated 130 children over 3 decades. He had been moved between parishes 6 times as complaints accumulated. Each time, the Archdiocese quietly transferred him to a new location rather than reporting him to police. The documents the Globe obtained showed that Cardinal Bernard Law, the most senior Catholic official in Boston, had personally signed letters reassigning Geoghegan, despite knowing about the abuse allegations. Cardinal Law did not go to prison. He was transferred to Rome, where he lived in a Vatican residence until his death in 2017. But here's what you need to understand about Boston. Boston was not an isolated case. Boston was where the documents became public. The pattern existed everywhere. Following the Boston revelations, survivors and journalists began examining church records across the United States. What emerged was a picture of systematic institutional protection that had operated for decades. In 2018, a Pennsylvania grand jury investigated 6 Catholic dioceses and examined internal church documents going back 70 years. What they found was evidence of abuse by more than 300 priests involving more than 1,000 victims. And a consistent pattern. Abuse was reported internally. Priests were moved rather than reported to police. Victims were pressured to sign confidentiality agreements, and records were kept in secret files, separate from official personnel files. The grand jury report described the secret files in detail. They contained letters from victims, internal assessments of priest behavior, and correspondence between bishops discussing how to handle allegations, all without involving law enforcement. The phrase used internally was not abuse. It was boundary violations. It was inappropriate relationships. It was problems with children. The language was designed to obscure what was actually happening. Now here's where it gets global. The United States was not unique. Ireland, Australia, Germany, Chile, France, Poland, investigators in country after country found the same pattern. Abuse, internal knowledge, reassignment, silence. In Ireland, the Ryan Report published in 2009 documented decades of physical and sexual abuse in Catholic-run institutions. The commission found that church authorities had protected their reputation over the safety of children as a matter of deliberate policy. In Australia, the Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse ran for 5 years and examined dozens of institutions. It found that 7% of Catholic priests in Australia had been accused of child sexual abuse between 1950 and 2010. 7% of all priests, over 60 years. The commission found that the Catholic Church had the worst rate of institutional child sexual abuse of any organization it examined. And what you need to know about the Vatican's response is this. In 1962, the Vatican issued an internal document called Crimen Solicitationis. It established procedures for handling cases of sexual abuse by priests. Those procedures required absolute secrecy. Victims, witnesses, and anyone involved in the process were sworn to silence under threat of excommunication. The document was not made public until 2003. It had existed for 40 years. In 2001, the Vatican issued new guidelines requiring all cases of clerical abuse to be reported to Rome, not to local law enforcement, to Rome. Pope John Paul II, who led the Church during the period when much of this abuse occurred and was systematically covered up, was beatified in 2011, the first step towards sainthood. In 2023, the Vatican released a report on former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, a prominent American churchman who had risen to the highest levels of the Church while abusing seminarians and minors for decades. The report found that multiple popes had received information about McCarrick's behavior and had taken no action. McCarrick was laicized, removed from the priesthood. In 2019, he was the first cardinal in modern history to be stripped of that rank. He has not been criminally convicted. He is 94 years old. The Catholic Church has paid out an estimated $4 billion in settlements to abuse survivors in the United States alone. Globally, the figure is significantly higher. The abuse did not happen despite the institution. In many cases, it happened because of it. Because the institution's reputation was consistently prioritized over the safety of children. And because the people in positions of authority made deliberate decisions to protect abusers rather than victims. The documents exist. The grand jury reports exist. The internal files exist. And the institution is still operating,